All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in to the first official episode of Fight For It Radio. This is your host, Dylan McGrath. I'm a commentator for Fight For It, and I'm the head MMA analyst over there, head combat sports analyst anyway. And this will be basically a preview show for Fight For It 9, November 23rd, 2019 in Hickory, North Carolina. And you guys can check that out at the Select Sportsplex, as it's now called. It was formerly known as the Carolina Select Volleyball Club. It's now the Select Sportsplex. There will be around 2 episodes of Fight For It Radio that come out with every show. There will be a preview show, and then there will be a post show. The post show will consist of basically results and going over kind of the best performances of the night, kind of what we saw there. We will have Trevor Hayes on the post show with us. He was supposed to be kind of co-hosting this edition as well, but we couldn't make it. So riding solo for this one, for this opening episode of Fight For It Radio. The preview shows will be a preview of basically the bout order for kickboxing and MMA fights, and kind of some previews of what I expect to see in the matchups there as we get ready for Fight For It 9 coming up in less than a week. And we've got some interviews for you guys as well on the back end of the podcast. We've got Roland, Mizell, Roly-Poly, the champ in kickboxing for Fight For It, heavyweight champ. He's going to be defending his title against Markel Fullwood Jones. We're going to be talking about that matchup a little bit. And we've got a preview interview with him. We sat down after some training and just discuss kind of getting ready for the fight and kind of his previous combat sports experience and his journey. And speaking of journeys, we've also got a killer, super long interview with Dalton, Too Strong Taylor, really just a great guy. Met him when I was kind of first getting introduced to a lot of people within the scene, and everybody talks about how he's the next big thing, but man, the more you talk to this guy, the more I believe he is the next big thing. He definitely has all the right tools and checks all the right boxes, and he has a phenomenal story that I think any company would love to tell, and I'd love for you guys to get to know him a little bit better. So stick around after the initial matchup preview for Fight For It 9 to hear some interviews with those guys, 2 heavyweights. We've got Dalton Taylor, who I mentioned earlier. He's going to be taking on Caleb Harris in one of the MMA title fights that we have. And that's a big opportunity for him to move to 4-0 and potentially even work to go pro off of that. We talk a little bit about that in our interview as well. So with that being said, let's get right into it. This is Fight For It Radio. I'm Dylan McGrath. Thanks for tuning in. All right, Fight For It 9, November 23rd. Got a lot of MMA on this one, guys. There's going to be some boxing matches as well, but the boxing order is really subject to change because of the way kind of amateur boxing works in North Carolina. It's kind of hard to predict, but we definitely have the kickboxing and MMA schedules out, and we're going to be going through all of them here. So Devin Happy Endings win from Jim O is going to be taking on Kim A from Primal Martial Arts in our opening bout. It's 125, 2 flyweight guys. Interesting thing about this fight is that both of these guys have a ton of experience in MMA. And, Devin Nguyen, he comes from Gym O, which is one of the most electric gyms in the Carolinas right now. Ton of talent there between IMPA, Tony Loco Soto now training there. Chase Gamble, of course, mainstay at that facility. Just a really, really good room, a really good group of guys to be training with. So all the boxes are checked there. Primal Martial Arts, not super familiar with them, but I do believe I've called for a couple of their fighters before. So that guy's Kim A 4-3 in MMA, and Devin Nguyen 6-3. So these guys are very experienced cage fighters. So it'll be interesting to see what they bring to the table as far as kickboxing goes. Moving on to our next matchup, it's a heavyweight showdown between Jason Dula from Atlantic MMA at 0-0. This guy is 6'5", by the way. And Alex Lockdown Lockley, who is 0-0 himself, fighting out of Shell Shock BJJ. So 2 debuting heavyweights. I know a little bit about both of these guys, actually. So I met Jason at the last Fight For It event at the LP Friends Stadium. He is a massive guy, 6'5", like I said, and a very athletic gentleman as well. He was just for taking photographs, taking pictures. He said he was training and he was looking forward to hopefully fighting on the next one, and it looks like he has been training. If you look at his Facebook and some of his other social media, it definitely appears that he is in the gym a lot, and his body shows it. I expect that if he's been putting in the rounds with people like Josh Crouch at Atlantic MMA, that this will be a good showing for him. But he's going up against somebody with a lot of toughness and a lot of heart. I can speak from watching Alex Lockley's grappling career from kind of a distance. Me and him are pretty close weight class wise, and we started around the same time. So anybody like that has a similar build to me, I kind of look at them when they're rolling, and I kind of try to pay attention to them, because I know that we will probably meet eventually, either training together at an open mat, just looking for people our size, or we will compete against each other. I have not competed against Alex yet, but I always thought our paths would cross. He is now getting into the world of striking, taking the dive into the kickboxing ring. This will be his first combat sports outing that wasn't a grappling tournament, if I'm not mistaken, based on just things I've gleaned from his social media. He has a great story as well. He is someone who has used fighting and jiu-jitsu as a way to kind of combat depression and mental illness. And he's also lost a ton of weight, which I can relate to. For those who may not know, I used to be like 325 pounds, started boxing, started doing jiu-jitsu. A lot healthier now, still not where I want to be, but few of us are, and that's why we're, martial artists, we're perfectionists. Alex Lockley, very similar journey there. I know he's a bartender or a chef as well. I know he's a hospitality person. I think he's a chef. But he is someone that everybody talks about being a great guy and having a lot of toughness and a lot of heart. And that's exactly what kind of guy you need to go take on a really athletic dude like Jason Dula. So should be an interesting affair. You can never look away from the heavyweights. It's either going to be a slog or it's going to be a great first round. So we'll see what happens. We're going to stay tuned on that one. I'm very interested to see what happens with Jason Dula. Definitely a guy who checks all the right boxes. Let's see if he can put it together in the ring. Next up, welterweight. Welterweight showdown between Cheyenne Shaino, the Super Cheyenne Coker, fighting out of Elevate MMA, my gym, against Zachary the Cannibal Thrift. Both of these guys are pretty much incapable of putting on boring fights, So I think this will be a really, really great showdown between two super game dudes. We got Cheyenne, who really well known for his footwork, his stance switching, his ability to jab, keep people at range, and kind of move around them. I found that style is a little risky in amateur, especially when the rounds are so short. You can have rounds stolen from you really easily, and I think if you look at Cheyenne's record, you'll see that most of his losses, if not all of his losses, I think, have come via split decision. So it's just one of those things where in the last fight we saw him come out in a Fight For It at LP Friends Stadium. He was much more willing to exchange in the pocket and much more willing to commit to one single stance, which Trevor Hayes talked a lot with me about after the show. Just committing to one stance, whichever stance is doing damage, because when you're dangerous from both sides like Cheyenne is, it can be kind of a guessing game of how he's going to attack you, and sometimes he'll have a guy that he can hit with his right side way easier than his left side, or left side way easier. It just depends. And I think that once he finds success with one stance, he should really start working that stance until something changes. There's no reason, if there's no reason to go away from that stance or change things up, I really don't want to see him dancing too much, so to speak. Zachary Thrift, the cannibal, this dude is an animal. If you follow him on social media, he's a beast. Definitely not a Francis Ngannou type. He is 170 pounds, but man, he is every single ounce of 170 pounds. He was talking about cutting to lightweight. I don't know how this guy's going to do it. If you look at the pictures he posts, man, the dude is just shredded. And every time he walks out there with the intention of knocking somebody's head off. Like, you know, he had that match versus Alan Jackson at the last fight for it, and he was landing everything in the kitchen sink. But Alan Jackson was just a little too tough and just hung in there until it was 5 o'clock somewhere, I guess. But Zach Thrift, shredded. I mean, he looks like a Batman action figure. And I know that his conditioning is going to be on point. I know he's going to be really strong in the clinch. I know he's going to be a brawler. And a brawler who's really going to come forward and take it to Cheyenne. I think that kind of plays into Cheyenne's style a little bit. So I'm interested to see how this one goes down. Obviously, I've trained a lot with Cheyenne. I haven't trained very much with Zach, but I've called enough of his fights to know that he's an absolute dog, and that this will be a dog fight. So this is actually one of my picks for potential fight of the night. This one's got fight of the night written all over it. Do keep your eyes on this one. So, all right. So going into the next kickboxing event, we've got Sam Marler making a debut at 170 pounds against a debuting Garrett Rosenbaum. Now, we've seen Garrett a couple times in the MMA cage fight for it. He went 0-2 in the cage. He's fighting out of Atlantic MMA, sorry, and looking to find some success in the ring. Both of these guys are built pretty well for 170 pounds, just looking at pictures of them. Don't know too much about Sam Marler. I have seen him around. Trains out of TKO, who I think we've had like 2 or 3 fighters from on previous Fight Forward shows. Garrett Rosenbaum, obviously from that camp with Josh Crouch. It'll be interesting to see kind of if he can find success where he was not finding it in the cage, because I did think he looked good in his 2 previous outings to the cage. He was just up against very, very tough guys in both of those fights. Now, this next one is very, very, very interesting. 145 pounds, Bobby Wasabi Martin, out of 36 Chambers. That's over there with Josh Brackett, Adley Edwards. That's that new camp over in Holly Springs. Super great facility, super nice facility, and Josh is an incredible Muay Thai coach. So I know a lot of people from Chance Muay Thai, a lot of other programs that are dissolving, are kind of moving over to this 36 Chambers place, and I think it's a great school. And this will be one of their first really big fights as a school, from my understanding. It's definitely Bobby's first fight with 36 Chambers Muay Thai. He's 7-3. He's very experienced. He's fought all up and down the East Coast. He's taking on Brandon Rollins, North Carolina favorite, 4-1, fighting out of Tap Out Raleigh. That's over there with the Irish hand grenade, Marcus Paul Davis. Brandon Rollins, me and him have known each other for quite a long time, actually. Kind of came up in similar circles. He started training way before I did in terms of the martial arts, and found himself taking a cage fight, taking some kickboxing fights. I know he's got a finish in the cage as well. He's a really, really game kid, tough, and he's trained under a couple different people, but ever since he got under Marcus Paul Davis, we've really seen a turn in his fights. He's super aggressive. He's very, very technical. He's quick. He's athletic. I think that Bobby's all of those things as well, except he's just got way more experience. He's 2 inches taller, which means the reach is probably going to be in his favor too. And he's arguably going against someone with as good of a coaching staff as he has for the first time, probably. I would say that Josh, Adley, and crew are definitely super knowledgeable on striking, and you're going to need the boxing knowledge of Marcus Paul Davis to be able to work against somebody like Bobby Wasabi Martin. So that's another one of my picks, I would say, for fight of the night. I'm still trying to figure out exactly which pick I'm going to make for kickboxing. But Brandon Rollins versus Bobby Martin is a fight between two guys that should not disappoint. I don't think it could disappoint anyway. 135-pound title fight. We're getting our 3 title fights for kickboxing. That's right, you heard it. 3 title fights for amateur kickboxing. It's a lot to take in, I know, but we've got Omar Omio Hassan out of Harrison Coble Muay Thai taking on Aiden Chester from Apex Martial Arts. Omar Hassan, we've seen almost all of his fights on his record have been a fight for it. 1 or 2, I think, he may have fought elsewhere, but he's so quick. We were noting in his last fight just his ability to go to the body and really light the body up. He kind of fell short against Jordan Fox in a fight that I really thought he won. I really did not agree with the judge's decision. I kind of made that known on the mic. I think it's great that he's in the title picture for Fight For It. I think he's very deserving of it, and I think he's a very talented kickboxer. From Sudan or of Sudanese descent, definitely the biggest weapon he has is that left body kick. He's so quick with that left kick. To the head, to the body, to the leg. I mean, he's just got great combos, great stringing combinations that always end with, most of the time, with just thudding kicks. Aiden Chester, somebody with this around an equal amount of experience, but I had a really hard time digging up any info on him. It is amateur kickboxing, and not everybody has the great track record with uploading fights that Fight For It does. So was unable to really find any solid info on Mr. Aiden Chester, but he's fighting for the title. He's got some wins under his belt, got a finish even. So 135-pound title, Omar Hassan, I would say, just because we know more about him and we've seen what he can do to people who have challenged for this belt in the past, I think he's actually going down to 35, because if I'm not mistaken, he fought Fox at 45. So this could be interesting, because we could be seeing a little bit quicker Omar as well. A little bit quicker, a little bit more leaned out as he gets ready to probably switch over to making a pro. You can never tell with these kickboxing guys, because some of them will have records where they just want to get their 5 out of the way and go pro. And then you have guys like Bobby who have 10 fights and they're just like, I'll just stay an amateur until I really feel like I'm ready, and get that experience. So, who knows what's going to go on with Hassan should he win the belt. Nothing wrong with collecting amateur belts, especially when you have no interest in going into MMA. There's no rush to try to become a pro kickboxer. Going into the next fight, and probably what I would consider one of the most anticipated matchups of this card from the casual perspective, just based on the poster, is the Roland Roly-Poly Mizell fight. He is defending his belt against Markel Fullwood Jones. Markel, we've seen him in the MMA cage for Fight For It. He lost to Kevin Satterfield in his last bout, but if you watch that fight, he was winning every second of that fight until that takedown, where he got taken down and got caught with a really sneaky submission. And once he got caught, you have to tap. You don't want to get your knee destroyed as an amateur for no pay. So, very close, very almost hard-fought victory for Markel. Came up short, looking to kind of create some static, really, and jump over to KB, 0-0 in KB, and getting a heavyweight title shot. I mean, that's pretty high praise, but from my understanding, they had a hard time finding an opponent for Roland as well. So Roland finally gets his opponent in the 268-pound Markel Fullwood Jones. Roland, I believe he said he was 220 or something like that, but I mean, there's a 50-pound weight difference between these guys, but Roland is 4 inches taller than him. So, Markel has a very deceiving body type, and I don't mean that he's a big guy who's quick, because everybody knows that about him. What people don't realize about him is that he's got super long arms, very freakishly long arms for a guy his size. And if he's got a good jab and a good cross, which he definitely has a great cross, he could potentially present some problems for Roland, but he's really got to make it a brawl early. I see that Roland just, in my opinion, just has way too much skills, way too many weapons. If the fight continues to go on and on and on past the first round, things get worse and worse as time goes on. So we talk a little bit about this fight with Roland later in the episode, and we also talk about this fight with Dalton during his interview as well. But Roland seems to be under the impression that Markel's going to try to work the clinch and hang up on him, but it's really going to come down to who the ref is. Because in North Carolina, what I've noticed is that there's kickboxing refs that will kind of let you work in the clinch, and there's some that will just not let you do that at all. So depending on who the ref is, clinch could be a big factor in this fight, because Markel could really use his strength and his size to kind of hopefully slow down Roland and close the range, because the front kick and the teep of Roland Mizell is nasty. It's Chance Muay Thai trained. He's with Elevate MMA now, obviously, but he's got a very solid fundamental base with Trevor. He got with one of the best Muay Thai coaches in the state immediately upon training and formed his base. And now everything he's learning with Elevate is just adding on to that incredible tool set that he has. And the front kick and the teep game is going to be gnarly for Markel to deal with. He's got a big target on his front there. And I predict that Roland will finish him via head kick, just based on the fact that Roland has so many weapons that he can hit from anywhere. I feel like the promotion is kind of sleeping on Roland. They kind of are building Markel up to be the favorite, and he's definitely dangerous. He's got extremely heavy hands. He can knock Roland out very easily if Roland allows himself to be hit. But I just think that Roland is going to do too good of a job of staying away, and Markel's not tall enough for Roland to really have a problem setting up that head kick. And there's not going to be anybody that Markel's fought in an MMA cage that has a kicking game like Roland's. But Markel has just been a story of success the entire time I've been calling his fights. His first fight that he had against Dalton that I saw him in, I thought Dalton would KO him based on the shots Dalton was landing in the first minute or two. But Markel landed some big shots of his own and made that fight a real war. And we talk about in Dalton's interview later on in the show, you guys will get to hear, Dalton almost died in that fight. So that was a tough bout, and Markel Fullwood-Jones proved himself in that war. We saw him come back and knock out David Shuklea, broke David Shuklea's nose in the MMA cage, was well on his way to doing the same to Kevin Satterfield as well, and got caught in that knee bar. So it's going to be one of the most interesting kickboxing matches you'll ever see. I promise you that much. How good of a fight it's going to be, I don't know. But I can tell you it's going to be one of the most interesting matchups you'll ever see. And the fact that this division is so wide open that you can have two guys of this big of a size discrepancy fighting is pretty one of a kind. So keep your eyes peeled for the roly-poly train and the Markel Fullwood-Jones system to collide in a co-main event. Main event of the boxing card, my most anticipated fight, probably of this whole thing top to bottom, George Copa of the Raleigh Institute of Martial Arts, REMA, 9-2, 170-pound champ from a different organization, taking on Josh Crouch, 5-1, out of Atlantic MMA, the champion, the Mr. Fight For It himself, most active Fight For It athlete ever in history, and seems like he's not showing any signs of stopping. He's going to be taking on a monster in George Copa. George Copa is extremely technical, extremely talented, a ton of experience. 9-2, that's a lot of fights, and he's finished a lot of them. He's got a very, very complete game. He's got a very good front kick. He's got a very good body teep. He can do a lot of damage to the body very quickly. This is really not the kind of fight that you see on the local level very often. Two champions from different organizations duking it out and being promoted as a champion versus champion match, mainly because of politics between promoters, I guess, but also because most of the time I think you would have fighters looking to avoid a fight like this, whereas George Copa and Josh Crouch are eager for a fight like this, and that says a lot about both of these guys. And I've always said that, you know, Josh has displayed time and time again that he is a warrior, and he will absolutely need that against George Copa. I think closing the distance, making it a brawl, working the knees and the clinch that he had versus Phil Kratz is going to be huge. That Superman punch that he seems to be so good at might be a good weapon for him in this fight too, just so he can kind of like close the distance on George and get inside. George is just very, very dangerous. He's a very dangerous opponent, very, very dangerous, and I've seen him finish a lot of fights with guys just kind of charging at him. So I think that Josh Crouch will hopefully have done some film study on George and is a little bit, you know, prepared for that. And I think this is just going to be an insane fight. Like, it's going to be a classic Josh Crouch fight, if I had to guess. If I had to guess, this is going to be everything that, you know, people who like Josh Crouch's fights that fight for it, everything they like about it. This is going to be a true test of his abilities, and his toughness, I think, because George is high volume, and I foresee him taking a lot of shots in the early and hanging tough, and then making it a brawl later on. And that's our kickboxing portion of our card. You know, just awesome. You know, not very many kickboxing fights, but the ones that we have, man, they're so awesome. You know, our debuting guys. All of our debuting guys are either experienced MMA fighters, or they are like guys like Alex Lockley, who's got a jiu-jitsu background, you know, has a good story as to why he's in this. Jason Dula is a super athletic guy, so I really think that the debuts will be a lot different this time too. We'll see a much higher quality fight out of our O&Os versus O&Os than we have at previous Fight Forward shows. Just very high quality matchmaking. I can't really say enough good things about Marcelo Rodriguez, the matchmaker for Fight For It, for setting up some of these fights. Like the George Copa versus Josh Crouch one, a lot of people would say that most promotions will try to protect their champions. This is not that. This is a hard fight for Josh. This is a hard fight for him. And for him to accept it, and for the promotion to be willing to put their guy out there like this against a guy like George Copa, it says that they really believe in him, and I'm starting to believe in him too. I mean, I think this could be a really, really good fight. So we'll see what happens, but great matchmaking on this card, and should be an awesome, awesome kickoff to our night. Now, you know, obviously we're going to take our little jiu-jitsu break here. We're going to have Johnny Lee taking on Roland Parker in a 10-minute intermission match. And then we're going to get into the bulk of our show, which is the MMA portion. And the MMA fights, we've got quite a bit this time. So I'm just going to kind of breeze through some of these guys that I don't really know a lot about because they're debuting or whatever the case may be. All right, so MMA at Fight For It 9, going to be kicking off with Adrian Briley, or Brealey, out of Burgess Boxing, taking on Dan Thomas at 135 pounds. Dan Thomas fighting out of Glory Martial Arts. So, little bit of background on these two. Adrian's got two amazing submission victories, both of which you can find on the internet. Dan Thomas out of Glory Martial Arts. You can imagine that there's a lot of Dan Thomases in MMA. I had a lot of info. I had a lot of trouble finding any info on Mr. Thomas.
But Adrian Braley, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. I'm sorry, Adrian, if I'm butchering you. But it looks like he comes from a boxing gym, but he's got a great grappling game. He got his first victory in like 30 seconds, less than 30 seconds, with a rear naked choke. So I would watch out for him to take the back in this one. Joseph the Hunter Pugh, 5-8, 2-0, 170 pounds, taking on Mac Mushu Shoemate from Section 8 MMA. 170 pounds, tough weight class, probably the most competitive one in MMA, if not, 185. Joseph Pugh, he's definitely somebody who lives up to his name, the Hunter. A bit of a headhunter in some of his previous outings, but got the win by ref stoppage in his last bout. But that was back in 2017, so he's taking a little bit of time off from the MMA game. Coming back in this one now, looking to keep this momentum going, continue headhunting. We'll see if he can pick up another knockout win. He's taking on Mac Shoemate, who they call Mushu, and he lost to Truckon Carson. Everybody knows Truckon Carson, that guy who looks like the monster from Netflix's The Witch, who I think he just went pro recently, but they fought in an amateur bout in his debut back in August. So, Truckon's been keeping it super busy. He did lose to Truckon in the first round by submission, if I'm not mistaken. So, Mushu falls to 0-1 in that one, and now he's back in the Fight For It ring, and he's just looking to kind of get in the win column. So, Mac Mushu Shoemate taking on Joseph the Hunter Pugh, 2-0, 1-1. What can you say? Both of these guys are looking to earn it. Let's see what they got. All right, Brandon Garcia from Team Rock, great gym, taking on somebody from an awesome gym as well, Michael Queen. This is 135 pounds. Michael Queen's fighting out of Gym O. Just two debuting guys fighting out of really, really solid gyms. I wouldn't expect them to, look like untrained fighters. Definitely two amazing rooms full of talent there. So we'll see what their debuting fighters look like. Jaquise Big Bang Diggs. This is a heavyweight fight, by the way. Team Rock Fayetteville, another Team Rock guy, taking on Pat Breeze Broadnax. Pat Breeze, independent fighter, listed as an independent fighter. Debuting matchup here. From my understanding, Mr. Breeze messaged the Fight For It & Co. Facebook page and just said, I want to have my first MMA fight with you guys. I got a little bit of wrestling in high school, trained a little bit with Team Octopus, not with them any longer. I'm just on my own, but I'm looking to debut. And they said, we'll see what we can find for you. They found him a fight. So I'm interested to see what happens. Just every show should have a guy like that, like an independent guy that just kind of messages the promoter on Facebook, just to see what happens. Another debut matchup coming up here, right after that with Dylan Nelson versus Kerry Reed at 150 pounds, kind of a catchweight affair. Team Rock Harrisburg for Dylan Nelson, a great gym, obviously. Tons of guys that are pro now. Tons of guys with UFC experience, both cornering and fighting in the UFC on that team. So, a super good gym. Taking on Kerry Reed from Glory Martial Arts at 150 pounds in a debut. Lots of debuts here, man. Sam the Sly Dog Silman at 145 pounds from Section 8 MMA, taking on a new Hayastan guy. Okay, Emmanuel Simpson. So, Hayastan MMA, that's that gym that gave us, Brian Battle. That's the gym that gave us Shamik Harvey. That's they have Roger. What's Roger's last name? I feel so bad. He just fought on the last Fight For It card. But Roger, they have a lot of good guys out there at Hayastan. You've got Tom. And Mr. Forant, the coaches out there. They're great guys, so they're producing really, really strong athletes. And I think that this guy Emmanuel Simpson, if they're ready for him to debut and he's debuting under their flag, he's going to be very well prepared. So I hope Sam the Sly Dog Silman is equally ready to rumble. Going into one of my most anticipated MMA fights of the night and one of my fight of the night picks here, we've got Caleb Harris challenging Dalton Too Strong Taylor for the first ever heavyweight amateur MMA Fight for It belt. Dalton Too Strong Taylor, we're going to be talking with him in a brief interview. I shouldn't say brief, it's very long. It was supposed to be 20 minutes, and then it just went twice as long as that because I didn't want to stop him. He was just going on and on, saying all the right things. And it seemed like every time I was getting ready to ask him a question, he would kind of like just say the thing I was getting ready to ask as part of his statement. So definitely stick around for that if you're interested in this young man. He's got an awesome story. Lost his wife to cancer, and has lost other family members as well since then. Lost a ton of weight, got in great shape to kind of begin this journey in martial arts, and now he's 3-0 under Coach Billy Dowie under Forge Fitness. And he's taking on Caleb Harris, 6'2", from Rock Bottom MMA. He's 5'5", 5'5" as an amateur, so he's got a ton more experience than Dalton. I'm thinking that this is a guy who is probably not going to wrestle Dalton. I mean, Dalton's had a really big problem with every guy that he's faced, trying to clinch him and drag him against the fence and take him down. And he's told me that he never has hit anybody like above 25 or 50% in a fight. So I'd like to see him stand and bang for once, just because I want to see how hard he can really hit if he's never hit anybody 100%. And I know based on Caleb Harris's record that he can bang as well. He's got some finishes of his own. So it's a heavyweight throwdown. It's for the belt. It's 5 rounds. You really can't afford to miss Dalton Too Strong Taylor. Definitely a young man on the rise and probably one of the most popular combat sports athletes in North Carolina, despite the fact that he's only 3-0 as an amateur. If this guy continues this momentum, if he continues to look this good going forward, it's going to be really hard to stop the momentum. It won't be long before we see this guy somewhere in one of the big shows. So let's keep an eye on that one. Heavyweight title fight, MMA, about midway through our card there, or just under midway. More MMA debuts from Team Rock Harrisburg and Section 8 MMA taking on each other. Devin Stevens from Section 8 and Jack Neely from Team Rock Harrisburg after that. Then going up, we've got Alex Poloni from Charleston Krav Maga taking on Justin Gunter, the Wolverine from Rock Bottom MMA. Justin Gunter is kind of a little prospect, man. You can actually look into his record a little bit and find that he's got some pretty significant wins, via strikes. And even in the fights that he has lost, from what I saw in the tape, and he can land them. And he's fought, a couple different places as well. So he's a bit of a road warrior. But he'll be taking on Alex Poloni. And Alex Poloni has had 8 fights, so he's got quite a bit of experience. Lately, been on a little bit of a skid. He also lost to Truckon Carson. Truckon Carson had a crazy year in 2018 and 2019. He was so active. Just to go back to Truckon Carson real quick, 2017 he makes his debut, loses via knockout to Juan Ramon. 2018 July he comes back, beats Ernest Robinson by armbar in the first round. This is Truckon Carson we're talking about again. 2 months later, he returns to the cage versus Kendall Morris and wins versus him in round 1 via stoppage. Kendall Morris we've seen in Fight For It as well. Super legit guy. He then takes on Alex Poloni, chokes him out with a guillotine in under a round. This is he took a little bit of time off. It was like 6 months there. Then he comes back in 5 months and fights Mushu Mack at Rowan County Fight Nights and wins in 30 seconds. Then he makes his pro debut a month later, a month and 4 days later, he makes his pro debut and wins via stoppage when he shatters the orbital of Matthew Messer via flying knee in an incredible pro debut, and then he's right back in it. 11. So 2 months, almost a month and a couple of days, month and 15 days later, he's back in it. He wins by decision. So, wow, he's not fighting on this card, but man, he's fought on every other card in 2018 or 2019 in North Carolina, it would seem. So he's beaten a lot of guys that we've seen here and fight for it, including Alex Poloni. And Alex Poloni also has some experience versus Billy Jack Cup. He lost to him at Fight Lab. So, this is a guy who may appear to have kind of a mediocre record, but he's faced some tough opposition. And I do believe that, Justin Gunter, he suffered some setbacks in his career so far, but from what I can see, he's got a lot of potential. So keep an eye on this one as well, because even though these guys have all this experience, they are both really hungry to get some wins. They both could use a win at this point in their career to keep going. It is at 160 pounds, so I think this is in between two weight classes that they both fought out. So it'll be interesting to see who's in better shape as well. Getting into the meat of the MMA card now, the best fights of the night here. Chris Riker-Smith from Leadership Martial Arts is going to be taking on Billy Jack Cup, 6-3, 170 pounds. Y'all know Billy Jack. He's on a 2-fight win streak. He just won via triangle choke in a crazy upset against Joshua Alston. He was getting, I would say, dominated in that fight, and then pulled out that jiu-jitsu that he's so well known for and picked up the win. Before that, he choked out Gabriel Brown. We mentioned the Alex Poloni win. I mean, he's on kind of a tear now, I would say. Chris Riker-Smith, I had a lot of trouble really even finding a record for him, but he is 6-6, it would seem. Don't really know a lot about his skill set either. I really couldn't find any info on him. I'm not sure if his last name was maybe misspelled in our notes, or I'm not getting the full picture. I'm not really 100% sure yet, but I'm going to try to figure that out real quick, so just bear with me, guys. And if this gets too long, I'll go ahead and edit it out. I just want to go to the poster for the fight and make sure that I have his last name correct, because I can't find any info on this guy. Nope, there's the poster, and his name is spelt the same as it is on our notes here. So, unfortunately, was unable to find any real data on Chris Riker-Smith, but he's got a lot of experience, and he's going up against Billy Jack Cup, and Billy Jack Cup doesn't do boring fights. So I would say this could be a potential fight of the night. I always think that Billy Jack Cup has that potential to make it a fight of the night candidate. I'm really excited for the next fight, though, because we're going to see Kevin Spirrell, who represents both Elevate MMA and Irish Hand Grenade, Marks Paul Davis, Tap Out Fitness in Raleigh, making his return to the cage for the first time in almost a year, I think, against Josh Hoffman, who's 1-0 fighting out of Section 8 MMA. Kevin Spirrell is a world champion in, I believe, judo. So he's got, quite a bit of, and I know he's a blue belt in jiu-jitsu as well, and I've rolled with him personally, and he's a very strong guy, got a great grappling game. So in his last fight, I found that, it was mostly a stand-up affair, and he, won a mostly striking decision, and I hadn't really seen him strike before that, but he was impressive in his outing, and I know it's only getting better the more he works with Irish Hand Grenade Marks Paul Davis, and I think more of his grappling and stuff comes from Elevated MMA. So it'll be interesting to see what his corner is like, what it's made up of, as I know Cody will be at this event, whereas maybe he hasn't been at some of the other fights, but Marcus Paul Davis is usually always in Kevin Spirrell's corner, so very high-level coach there. Section 8 MMA's got a lot of work to do on this card. They got a lot of guys fighting. After that, we're going to have Advantage MMA's Jeremy Mitchell, the Adonis, who is 1-0, taking on a 1-4 Dreon Martin at a 145 in a pro fight. This is one of our 3 pro fights for MMA. Dreon Martin just, he was at the last, I think it was the last fight for it, where he suffered defeat in the MMA cage, and he was looking to get right back in there. They do call him the Future previously, so you may have seen that nickname for him as well. But he's now the Bullet. He did pick up a win via knockout, ref stoppage. Really, it's kind of like a TKO back at EWC 15. That was back in 2018 though, and since then he's kind of been trying to get fights that have been canceled. He was scheduled to fight Juan Ramon. He lost to J.J. Brantley at Fight 4 at 7. So not Fight 4 at 8, but the Fight 4 before that, we saw him fight J.J. Brantley in a pro fight. So, when he was an amateur, though, he had a ton of amateur fights. A ton. He had 18 amateur fights. So he's got a lot of mileage on him, and he's got a lot of experience on his record. So taking on a guy like that when you're 1-0 for Jeremy Mitchell, it says a lot about Mr. Mitchell, and a lot about the cojones on him. He's had a lot of trouble trying to get a fight ever since he debuted almost nearly a year ago. Actually, a year ago from the day of this recording, he debuted at MMA EWC 19. Won in a minute via rear naked choke. And since then, he's had a couple of fights, 3 fights it looks like, get canceled. So he's been anxious to get back in there. It looks like he's been looking for a fight almost the whole time he's been gone. He had a ton of amateur fights too, 14 amateur fights himself. And he's fought, I see some names on his record here as well. Chris Bennett, Joshua Cook. These are some good guys as well. So I'm interested to see what happens here. Drayon is hungry for a win. I know he's hungry for a win, so I know he's going to be bringing a big fight here. I'm going to look for him to run forward and try to secure a knockout because I know he's got heavy hands. All right, so Pro 145 match with the Hebrew Hammer Kevin Schroeder. We just talked about him, and he's representing 8 Points Muay Thai, taking on Kenneth Crowder from Renegade Fighting Systems. Kenneth Crowder, if you've never seen him in person, just an insanely ripped individual with an insane build about him, kind of like a Hector Lombard-looking kind of guy. I haven't really seen him in a while. I think his last fight was at Roland County Fight Nights, which aren't recorded always, so I don't think I actually saw that fight of his. But he was scheduled to fight Kevin Schroeder once upon a time at a fight lab, so it is cool that they're kind of working it out and getting to fight now. He had a kind of a shorter amateur career. He just did 2-0 and then went pro after that. So he looked so good in his first 2 outings that they rushed him into a pro career. And since then, it's not been all roses for Mr. Crowder. He's got two recent wins, so he is on a 2-fight win streak, and he's probably looking to keep building that record because he's currently 3-3. And he's probably looking to go positive and get noticed by one of these bigger shows. So I'm looking for a highlight kind of finish for him. But he'll be going up against Kevin Schroeder, the Hebrew Hammer. Kevin's 0-2 right now in professional MMA. He was 3-3 as an amateur, or 3-2 as an amateur. No, 3-3. Yeah, that's right, 3-3. So I'm gonna probably expect Kenneth Crowder if Kevin Schroeder hasn't really changed anything about his game, or if he hasn't gotten more grappling under his belt. I know it's hard to get that kind of program or hard to get that kind of training out at 8 Points Muay Thai. But if he hasn't worked on that, I foresee that Kenneth Crowder will probably take him to the ground and choke him out. And then in our main event, we've got Brian Pooh Bear Battle returning from that quick loss to Overblood Nicholas Martino via armbar after that takedown versus Carolina's finest Aaron Chambers out of Kick Fit and Pariah MMA. And Aaron Chambers is a very in-shape individual. And when it comes to his pro bouts, he's more wins than losses, and he comes from a background of knocking people out mostly. And he does have some submissions on his win, but if you go back and look at most of his finishes, they're all heavy strikes. So I foresee there will be a lot more willingness to exchange than we've seen in Brian Battle's 2 recent outings. He took on Nicholas Martino, who has a really good TKD game, but we didn't really get to see a lot of the striking before that match ended because it was over so quickly. But in Brian Battle's initial pro fight, it was rough. The guy did not really want to strike with him at all, and he didn't want to grapple with him either. So I'm interested to see what happens when Bryan Battle is under threat by a guy with as heavy of hands as Aaron Chambers in our main event. And I really would like to see him bounce back. Like we say, Bryan Battle is a guy who checks all the right boxes. He's got a lot of fans. He has a great story, and he's a very talented guy, and he's at the right gym with the right guys. So we'd love to see him put it together, because if he can put it together and start winning some fights, it won't be long before you see that young man making the walk in one of these bigger shows. So that being said, that's Fight 4 at 9. That's the whole card from top to bottom. 45 minutes or so with me, Dylan McGrath, riding solo on this one. But I appreciate you guys hanging out. It will not be the only episode of Fight 4 Radio that I'm sure only has me, but it will be the last one for a while. I foresee myself having some guests on here to break down the fights as often as possible, and obviously the post show will feature Trevor. You guys will get to hear that in the days following Fight 4 at 9. In the meantime, you guys can head over to store.atlanticmma.com to pick up your tickets for Fight 4 at 9 in Hickory, North Carolina, where you can catch all these great fights and more. Stay tuned, because right now we've got an interview coming your way. First up, we're going to talk to Roland Mizell about his heavyweight title defense versus Markel Fullwood Jones. This is Fight 4 Radio. Thanks for tuning in.
So Roland, thanks for coming on to Fight 4 Radio, talk about your fight. We're just over a week out. We just did a tough gi class, and you're like grappling a week and a half before your fight and doing takedowns and stuff. So I think you're feeling good. I was going to ask you if you're feeling good, but it seems like you're feeling great.
Feeling great. Hey, he said he wanted MMA too, so we got to get ready, right?
This could be the beginning of a trilogy of fights between you guys.
No.
Could you?
No, because I'll win on both. If you win on both, there's no trilogy.
Okay, a prequel to the sequel then.
Right, exactly.
So you're fighting Markel Fullwood Jones, MMA guy who just fought Kevin not too long ago in the cage, and he's now stepping into the kickboxing ring with you. When I first saw this matchup, I was like, what the hell are they thinking? And then I thought about it more, and then I looked at both of you guys more a little bit, like your bodies and stuff, and it is going to look weird. The face-off's going to look a little bizarre, but for some reason, you guys are just, the way kickboxing weight classes work, this is going to work.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me either. I just wanted I wanted the 5-round title fight with Deshaun. That was at 210, so that's technically super heavyweight. And so I'm the super heavyweight champion, and they couldn't find me a fight, and here comes Markel. He called my name. He'll get what he wished for. So.
And you were telling me that you think that there might be a little confusion with the promotion about like whether or not that fight with Deshaun happened, or
yeah, they did their Fight For It Now TV or whatever, and they're talking about how this is the first super heavyweight championship, and it's not, guys. I'm already the champion. You know, this is my first defense. I beat Deshaun pretty handedly. I didn't think it was a close fight at all. This is going to be even more of a beatdown. Like, it's not even going to be close, and it's going to look really good for me because I'm so much lighter than he is, you know. But like you said, the face-off's going to be weird because I'm like 6 inches taller than him, but I'm 60 pounds lighter than him, so, you know, whatever. Here we go.
So let's talk a little bit about your journey to the fight. You started training how long ago? Like three or 4 years ago?
3 years ago. Like 2.5, 3 years ago.
But before that, you were a wrestler.
Yeah, I wrestled 2 years in high school. My first year, I broke my collarbone in the third match. Ended my season. I was out the whole season. Then did some off-season work. So I'm a lot more accomplished of a wrestler than, 1 year of wrestling. But yeah, so I wrestled, and then I took a year off waiting for my girlfriend at the time to graduate, and then we moved up here. And in that time, I gained 95 pounds. I went from 170 pounds to 265 pounds.
So what were you doing? Just bullshitting?
Literally sitting in my bed, eating food and watching TV, and next thing you know, I was fat.
Yeah,
so,
it happens quick, man.
It does. So.
But you got with Trevor over there at Chance, and you lost the weight, and then you started taking smokers around like 6 months in or 7 months into your training, I think.
Yeah, 5 months was my first smoker, which, funny story, it seems like I just keep fighting these guys who are substantially bigger than me. My first smoker, the guy blew off weigh-ins, and it's smokers, so who cares? And he came in the ring, and he was about the same height as me and just yoked, massive dude. And he hit me with the first jab, and my brain went fuzzy. I was like, okay, here we go, and proceeded to fight. He won the first round, I won the second round, I dropped him in the third round. And that's just kind of been the story of my fight career. Did another smoker, did a PKB against the guy who outweighed me by like 40 pounds. Like, it's just been the story, man.
You've only suffered one defeat at the hands of Deshaun, who you've already gone back and corrected that loss.
Yes, sir.
What do you think happened in that fight?
The first one?
And what did it teach you? Yeah.
Yeah, so I won my debut by head kick, nasty. I became the most popular combat athlete in the triangle. Like, everybody kept asking me about the head kick, and it all went straight to my head. I got massive, massive ego, and I watched some film on Deshaun, and I thought I saw a hole in his game, and I was like, I'm going to knock him out in the first round. It's going to be a 30-second head kick. The fight's going to be over. So if you go back and rewatch the fight, I threw like 5 or 6 head kicks as hard as I can in a row. No setup, no anything, and gassed out. So, I didn't have a backup plan. I didn't have plan B through Z like I should have, and I was gassed. So going into the second round, I'm walking forward with arm punches. And, when I lost the fight, I was like, I didn't lose that. But going back and rewatching it, it was super close. Could have went either way. I have no disdain about it being a loss on my record. I should have lost that fight. I didn't. I wasn't there. So.
What happened after that made you kind of? I know you switched camps in there.
Yeah, me and Trevor got into an argument. No need to make that any more public than it already is. We got into it. I was like, all right, forget this. I met this girl. She brought me to Elevate. Started training. I took about 3-4 months off because I was super depressed. Like, oh, maybe fighting's not for me. Then I realized fighting is definitely for me. So I started training again. Got back in the win column. Knocked a guy out. When they put the microphone in my face, I was like, yo, let's do a title fight, Deshaun. Come at me.
That was when you first fought for Fight For It.
That was my second. Yeah, because I lost to Deshaun the first time I fought.
That was Fight For It as well.
Yeah, and then when I came back, I beat Michael Chandler, and then I fought Jesse Renia, knocked him out in the second round. So I was like, all right, now's as good a time as any. I just starched this dude, and it's a Fight For It show. Let me go ahead and call my shot.
Yeah.
Got the fight.
So. Do you enjoy, I know you fought in a lot of different places. You fought up north as well. Do you like fighting for Fight For It?
I do like fighting for Fight For It. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not really happy with the way that this fight's been promoted. Like, I feel like they're trying to make Markel the favorite. That's kind of annoying me, but it is what it is. I am the champion. I'm gonna defend my championship. He's not a champion. He won't be a champion, at least not for me. But I do enjoy fighting for Fight For It. I'm not a fan of the drive. The only thing I like, I prefer fighting right here in Raleigh, so Triangle Kickboxing Promotion was cool because it's like, cool, wake up, go to
15-minute drive.
Yeah, go to weigh-ins, come home, take a nap, go fight, come home. So that is cool. But yeah, I like Fight For It. They do a good job with the video, and they do a decent job promoting it. So no hate there.
So how do you foresee the fight with Markel going?
It's gonna be a masterclass performance. He's not gonna know what hit him. Like, he's not gonna be able to touch me. I'm gonna be so much faster than him, so much longer than him, so much more precise than him. Like, it's going to be a beatdown. It'll probably be a stoppage, but he's a tough guy, so he might just go ahead and gut out a 5-round beatdown. We'll see what happens. It's up to him if I get a stoppage or not.
You got a lot because of your Muay Thai background instead of coming from like a traditional kickboxing background or like a boxing guy who's trying kickboxing. You have like a lot of weapons. You've got front kicks. You've got you're known for your head kick setups. Which weapon of yours do you think is going to be your biggest tool in this fight?
My jab.
The jab.
I don't think he'll be able to close the distance. And we really haven't seen my evolution of my boxing game. Because like you said, I came from Muay Thai where I was just kicks. All I could do was kick. I can box now too. My hands are just as good as my feet. And I think you're going to see that now. Because he's an aggressive guy. He's going to come at me. So it's going to make those kicks harder, crowd the kicker. And that's fine. I'm comfortable with my hands too.
Yeah, I was thinking that would be his only real shot at winning was to just make it a brawl early on.
Yeah,
come for your head.
Yeah. That's not going to work.
I think that's going to be very hard with somebody with like a jab like yours and a teep game.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys, I think, that fight for it don't have a teep game at all. And I think that's another thing that they're going to be a little surprised about when it comes to that Josh Crouch versus George Copa fight. Because I think George Copa has got mean front kicks and teeps.
Yes, sir, I agree. That's going to be an interesting fight.
Are there any other, there's a lot of interesting fights on the card. That fight is, right before your guys'. How do you see that fight going? Are there any other fights that you're looking forward to seeing how they go down?
Oh, man, I am very excited for that fight. That's going to be a fun one. I've seen both guys fight. I've trained with George a couple of times. That guy hits a lot harder than you would think he hits.
For his size.
His size,
100%.
even his build, like he that dude thumps. I do think George will be able to control the range a little bit. Josh is very, in there and brawly. I like both guys, so I wouldn't be upset to see either guy win, but if I had to put money, I'd say George. But I'm also really excited for Dalton's title fight.
Yeah.
That's somebody I'm close with. He's a friend of mine, and I'm excited to see all of his hard work pay off. I don't have a doubt in my mind that he doesn't walk away with that belt.
Yeah, I'm starting to doubt it myself after our conversation yesterday. He just is like speaking. He's saying all the right things right now. He's trying to go pro after this, which makes me wonder, like, what's next for you after you do this? Are you just going to keep trying to defend the belt? I know you had talked about doing MMA in the future. What's going on after this?
Yeah, there's some news to be broken here soon. Not quite yet. I want to make sure all the ducks are in a row. Make sure I come out of this fight unscathed. So there is news coming up, but my plan is to just keep on fighting. I only got 4 fights this year, unfortunately. I'm looking for 8 next year.
You were injured, right?
No, I had some personal problems I had to take care of, which is another thing that I'm very happy about. Just 4 months ago, I was in a low spot. I was unable to train. I didn't have a car. My girlfriend left me. Like, my whole life was upside down. And here we are 4 months later, I get to defend my title, So let that be.
Yeah, man, and now you don't have any of that stuff affecting your mental state going into the fight. And we were talking about, like, how every fight you've done so far, you've dealt with some form of injury or sickness in the lead up. In this fight, anything going on, or is this the first time you can say, I'm going into this pretty good?
Cannot tell. A gentleman never tells. I'm not gonna disclose any injuries or anything I'm dealing with. There's no excuses. I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna win the fight, and there's no need to know if I'm handicapped or not.
All right, man. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I know that everybody who watches these Fight Fort shows are looking forward to it. Thanks for doing the interview.
Yes, sir.
That's a man who doesn't seem too pleased, does he? Roland, normally a really happy-go-lucky guy. They brought that. I'm glad to see that there's a fight that's bringing that out of him that isn't so personal for him like the Deshaun fight was. So can't wait to see that matchup between him and Mark Helfel Jones unfold this Saturday. Last but not least, here on Fight For It Radio, we have got an interview with Dalton Too Strong Taylor. This one is a long one, so strap in and enjoy.
That's a secret, so don't tell anybody that.
Yeah, well, they only heard the last little bit of that, for the last 8 seconds of it anyway. But
Okay, so
this is Fight For It Radio, our first fighter interview, our first guest. Couldn't think of anybody better than Mr. Too Strong, Dalton Taylor himself. We're 2 weeks out from his title match at Fight For It, November 23rd. Feeling a little under the weather today. I was a little surprised when I got here, man.
yeah, it's that North Carolina weather. One day it's nice and breezy, and the next day it's a blizzard. So it's definitely affected me in that way. But either way, we'll get it together.
Yeah, man, we were talking a little bit about the fight before we got started, and I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on, after your last performance against Tavario, we talked about how you were where he was shooting on you, trying to take you down over and over again. Do you expect that kind of fight again with this guy, or are you expecting a different kind of fight?
To be honest, I'm expecting a different kind of fight because he's well-rounded. I've heard he's 6-5, so he's been in the game for a long time. He's 11 fights in, so there's a lot of experience there. So I am expecting him to come out and strike, but it's MMA, so anything goes. So I'll just be prepared in that aspect of it. Just wherever the fight goes, it goes.
Now, with a guy like that, having that many fights on his record, unlike your previous opponents, he's bound to have some tape out there. Have you watched any tape on him or anything like that?
To be honest, when they first gave it to me, like, hey, we got this guy for you, and I was like, okay. We took a look at some film, and we looked at, he's legit, and he's a good dude. Definitely somebody who's fought some good names. So we definitely watched some tape in the beginning, but this is still early in the career type of stage, and so like my best asset is just being well-rounded, and wherever the fight goes, being able to adapt. So we watched some film, but not too much. I mean, nothing that I needed to watch. Like, plus it's when it comes to film in the AMI career, unlike these high-level promotions like Fight For, they're not putting a lot of their content online, which is why I love fighting for Fight For, is because they actually give an opportunity for guys like us to be able to put our content out there, make highlights, watch our film and see where we failed and Rick succeeded at. So in all reality, like, there isn't that much film I can really watch other than a couple of Instagram clips, but nothing crazy.
And going back to being, like what you were saying, like well-rounded, you were saying that a lot of people think you don't have grappling, but I made the point that if that was the case, you would have been taken down by now. So, a lot of people might not know this about you, but you train under Billy Dowie, who's a hoist black belt. He's like your main guy. Yeah. So I would feel like, would you say that grappling is actually kind of how you got started, or is your base even?
I wouldn't say that it is. I started this around, I'll say probably 8 years now. Training for 8 years, and as I first started, my first ever Muay Thai coach was Tiffany Van Solis, aka Tiff Time Bomb. And,
yes.
At that point, I didn't really know who she was. She tortured me the first day, and I complained like a little crybaby. But I first started off, Muay Thai, boxing when I was a kid, karate, things like that, and I've always had an affinity for striking. But when I got into the hoist program with Billy and how we do things at Forge, it was just like, oh, you think you can strike? Okay. Mm-hmm. And then boom, they got one of the greats out there. Everybody who knows bagels, I think there's a video out there. I don't think I could hit him one time. He just took me down and showed me how important jiu-jitsu was. No matter how good you can strike, unless you're Francis Ngannou, even then, you need to have some kind of basic understanding of grappling.
Yeah, he got all the way to the belt.
Come on,
and then it caught up to him eventually.
And Billy is very keen. Billy's not going to put you out there like Billy is no joke. If anybody knows,
very honest guy.
Very honest, lovable guy, funny, very charismatic. I'm his evil stepchild, but he's definitely what I'd say. Particular about what we do in terms of jiu-jitsu, like the flashy stuff is cool, but you need to have your basics, and we're a hoist gym. We represent hoist, and so you need to be able to stand in base. You need to be able to shrimp. You need to be able to, mount, escape, like put yourself in situations, not just in the fight game, but transitions in street fighting and self-defense. That's our main key, is self-defense. So if you can defend yourself in the street, you'll be able to hopefully do it in a fight as well too.
I actually think that plays into the way that you think about grappling in a fight really well, because you were talking to me about how your preferred method would just be to stand up. Mm-hmm. And I feel like there's a lot of escaping and standing up in the self-defense program.
Oh, yeah.
And standing in base is like one of the most important things that you can have.
Yeah.
And it's so funny to me, like, calling fights of guys that, like, are pro fighters and they're not standing in base. Like, did you see that huge knockout Paris artist guy at Next Level?
Yeah.
It was mainly because the guy didn't stand in base.
Yeah.
Like, if he would have stood in base, he would have been able to at least back up. He was, like, getting up like a crab like this.
Like, a lot of guys think that. Shout out to Paris artist too.
What an animal that guy is.
It's crazy because he's such an animal, but like, he's a really good dude. He's a nice human being.
That's all I hear about him.
Super chill, and like we definitely think high of him, and so like, shout out to him. Like, I'm not taking any away from him.
100%.
He did what he did and went out there and got that KO. But you're exactly right. The guy didn't stand up in base, and he put his chin out there.
Got
put your chin out
splattered.
there. You know, Billy always says it. The guy's going to come and crack you down your jaw, and you're just going to be looking there like a dead eggplant on the ground. And, you know, you need to do the basic, simple things like standing and basing and putting your hand out there. Like, it's you know, the simple things that get you to that high level. And, yeah, some guys might be pro, right? Like, there's just different levels to this. Like, there's a bunch of pro guys out there that probably shouldn't be pro, and I'm just being completely honest and humbling about it. Like, there's some guys that shouldn't be pro. You know, we're in that game now where, you know, yeah, you go out there and get your fights, and then boom, you can go. But grateful that I have a good team like Billy to make sure that I'm just not out there doing whatever I want to do.
Yeah.
And something like standing in base, you know, is very important. Same thing like shrimping.
Yeah.
You know, like, or being able to put your hands on the head, or certain things that, like, looking for underhooks, like frames. Yes,
Yeah.
like you'll hear all my coaches. Underhook D, get him against the cage, spread your feet. Simple things that, like, if you do them, they'll work. Like, I'm not going to go out there and do a flying armbar and try to do something slick because,
Right.
and I'm not giving away any secrets here, but we look for high percentage.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, that's my favorite thing about that style, that hoist style, is it's like, what, you know, we're going to do the fundamentals, but we're going to do them so soundly and so technically that it's going to be, and another thing I really like about it is that all the stuff that is in that kind of school of thought is all super easy to do when you're tired as well as like fresh,
Yes.
which a lot of guys sleep on.
and that's what is drilled into you. It's like consistency in terms of the basics is you can do it when you're tired, you know, and it's not something you can do when you're tired, but you have to engage your mind and your body into one and make sure that when you are in that mode of like your heart's beating 1,000 miles an hour and you're going into a dark place and it's uncomfortable, you got to be able to be comfortable in the uncomfortability. You know, Billy I complain so much, Billy, but he's like, he'll make us do a whole conditioning round with a gi on. I'm like, Billy, I don't use a gi in any of my fights. So what? Get comfortable. You're in the uncomfortable position.
Yeah, it reminds me of like Goku when he was training like the Earth's gravity.
You know, I'm telling you, Tuesday nights at Forge is not for the weak at heart. Like, you know, it's a strength and conditioning practice, pure. I mean, we'll do maybe we'll do a sprawl if that's the most martial art thing we'll do. We'll do sprawls and some punches against the wall, but it's pure like conditioning, and you have to have a gi on. Like there's no joke, and it's an hour and some change straight conditioning, and it's like that's when you separate the boys from the men. And you know, as David Goggins says, you know, who's gonna carry the boats? That's my thing, you know? That's me. You don't know me, son.
That dude's an animal.
Yes, he is, and like Billy will give us opportunities to get water, and this is why I love that class. And it's like it's not for the weak at heart. Not to say anybody who doesn't make it can't, nothing like that, but like. He'll say things like, all right, guys, go get water. You'll see a couple guys get water. And then on our little sign there above the water, it's like, this is where the good fighters get water and don't need water, and the tired fighters do. And there's a guy in there named Ryan. He's a black belt killer. Anybody who knows has come to our gym. He's a killer. Like, he could probably, I'm pretty sure he can, you know, he doesn't fight like pro or amateur, nothing like that. He's a black belt, you know, hoist, but he's a monster. I guarantee he can go to the UFC and just off of pure self-defense alone, probably submit a couple guys. He's like a Damian Maia type of guy. He's super young too, but he'll always tell me, he's like, you know, good fighters don't need water D. So I'll sit there and I'll be not huffing and puffing because I've gotten used to it now. My strength and conditioning is something I pride myself on, and I'll not get water because I know like good fighters don't need water. So like in the fight, if I'm tired, I'm not looking for water. Like help, water, no. Like I'm good. You know?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about like how you played football before you know, when you were in college, and I always feel like when I think about being on the football field, it was kind of that same mentality for us in high school anyway. It's like, you know, the people who didn't get water would all stand around making eye contact at each other, like, yeah, we're the motherfuckers who don't get water.
That's right, man. Like it's just it's about you. Like it doesn't make you a bad human being or not, but it's how much you're willing to put in, how much you're willing to sacrifice. Everything is relevant. You know, like
how long you're willing to stay uncomfortable and be comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Like I'm willing to go farther than you. I mean, that's one of my things that I tell people all the time is that like when I'm in there fighting, I have to have this mindset that the person is necessarily better than me or anything. They might be better than me, but you will not outwork me. I tell my coaches, and I think this is something, I might not be 6'5" or you know, an Olympic wrestler, anything of those natures, those DNA or those just gifted, blessed guys have done it. What you will not do is outwork me. There's one thing that I can do. I may not be a Muay Thai champion. I may not this. You will not outwork me. I will push a pace on you that I can do. Like, that's something that I can control, right? Mm-hmm. I can control that aspect of life. I can't control, like, that my parents didn't put me in Greco wrestling and had me wrestle in bears. Yep. But what I can control is how much effort I put in, how much I get ready for my camp. Like, strength and conditioning will make cowards of us all. My coach, John Country Allen, anybody knows him, he says that all the time. It's like, conditioning makes cowards of us all. So, like, if I'm willing to outlast you, if you get tired before I do, and I can, beat you in that aspect, I will not. Like, that's where I will succeed. And I think a lot of people think because I look like, Maui from Disney or something like that. Like, I got a little chug, like, oh, this guy's not going to have any conditioning. And then, boom, when they fight me, they're like, oh, he's fast. He knows how to use his strengths. Conditioning is a huge factor. That's my thing. Like, I like to be Colby Covington in the fight game. Not necessarily the out of the cage thing.
In the media game.
No, he's no.
But the way he just is always moving forward, always pressuring, always putting an insane pace on
Cain Velasquez, for example, that's a guy I look up to. Cain, Kamaru Usman, like Nate Diaz. These are the guys that I look up to because, like, they may not be the flashiest guys, but they work hard and the technical aspects, the basics. Like, I'm gonna hit you with a 1, a 2, and a 3. I'm probably going to hit this guy with a 1 and a 2 this whole fight.
That's funny. It's funny that those are the guys you named because none of those guys are the kind of person that you were telling me earlier that the kind of fighter you want to be, like the flashier, like KO artist or, it just goes to show, like, a lot that you have a different appreciation for different styles as well.
Like, I look at everybody and I'm like, everybody has everything is relevant to everyone's skill type and who they are. Like, if you're long and lanky, what you got to do. If you're short and strong, what you got to do. Body types matter.
That's what makes the sport so cool.
Yeah, like it's just
there's so many different approaches and
it's a weird game, but it's also an amazing game because, like, I'm not 6'5". Yeah. I fought a guy that was like 6'8" last year, and it's crazy. I was like, dude, I would never prepare for that. And it took me a while, but once I was able to check my distance, see my timing, I was like, oh, I got him. You know what I'm saying? But I look at all those different aspects of fighting, and that's what makes martial arts so beautiful to me is that no two fights are the same. Like, okay, you see Ben Askren and Masvidal, like, everybody thinks it's going to be, Ben Askren's going to grab somebody, and like, no, you got to watch out because guess what? Flying knee. Yeah. Or you see a guy like myself, you see when I fought Markel, I was just about to talk about that fight because that's the fight that I think of when you talk about how you never are going to be outworked, you're never going to give up. Mm-hmm. That fight was kind of like that all the way through, really, just a war. And we had talked earlier, like, it was crazy. I almost died that fight, you know, like, in that fight, the first round, I didn't underestimate him, but, the first round, he had to wake me up a little bit, crack me up a little bit in the beginning, hit me with those two. But once he did that, I was like, oh, it's showtime. And then, I was able to take control. And then for a lot of people that don't know, like, I ended up in the hospital after this fight the day after.
Let's talk a little bit like what happens immediately after the fight. Like, you've been in a couple fights now. Mm-hmm. When did you know that something was not right? I knew the days before the fight. Like, I started having pain in my kidneys and my side, and I was like, it feels like a cramp. And I was like, I don't know what this is, and it was hurting me the whole weekend, but I'm not going to pull out a fight. No, I'm Hawaiian, baby. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a we fight, I'm not going to pull out just for that. I signed a contract, and he did, and he's expecting a fight. We're going to fight. So after the fight, went to the hospital. I was pissing blood. Come to find out I had something called rhabdomyolysis. For people that don't know, 6 months before that, I was maybe 335 pounds, out of shape. My wife had just passed away. I was in one of the darkest, worst places of my life. And at that moment, I realized, like, yep, it's time. I promised my wife I was going to go be the UFC champion. It's stop crying, stop it. Let's go put in this work and let's show the world how amazing she was. And that's what mattered more to me, like turning my pain into power and making something great out of it instead of being, sympathized. Like, I understand it, and it's a tough thing, and it's still hard for me today. But either I have two choices. I can either let it hurt me and let it take me down a place that I know I'm not supposed to go and she wouldn't be proud of, or let it boost me to another level. Let me make this the best thing to ever happen to me and let her be proud of me. So,
I decided to do that.
Yeah, that's one of the things I admire most about you.
Yeah.
Is that you could take something that horrible and turn it into like what you are turning it into, and kind of the movement that you're turning it into.
Hell yeah! I mean, there's so many dark things that happen out there, and that is probably the darkest thing I've had, coming from like gangs, and coming from LA, and my family being into like drugs, like heavy heroin, and my family being very affected by the drug culture, and then growing up in the divorce, like my dad wasn't there. So many things that I could have went the wrong way, and I almost did. I call myself the heaven's devil for a reason, and my wife is the reason why I'm in the position I am today, because she turned me into a good dude. She made sure, like, she grabbed me and was like, no, we're gonna go this way, and she showed me the love that no one's really showed me before. And so from that aspect of it, like that, I decided to change and turn my pain into power. Book coming out for sure. And I started again on the training, and I dedicated waking up 5 o'clock in the morning, getting into that gym when no one else was up, everybody was sleeping, eating all the foods. I mean, I did the whole no carb thing to cut from 330 pounds, and I fought November, I think 12th, 2018 was my kickboxing debut. I made 263 pounds from 330 pounds. I think it took me about 7 weeks, which was extreme, and I did an extreme thing. I'm not going to say that anybody out there, do not cut weight like that. It's a hard thing to do. It will affect your performance. So then after that, I kept doing the same aspect. I started maybe adding a little bit more carbs, but I was water cutting like an idiot and not understanding. It's all education, nutrition, and thing learning. To my fight with Gabe, I was at 258, which I expected to be lower, but I had a couple cheat meals here and there. And then after that, going to that fight, I went to 252. Like kind of water cutting again, and what I didn't realize how much damage I was doing to my body and to my kidneys. And Polynesian community, we don't really have a good set of kidneys, and my family does it. So what had happened is I ended up getting something called rhabdomyolysis. It's where your body's skeletal protein muscle that it'll break down into your kidneys when it's not supposed to. It's like extreme, like your body is like extremely exercise, I guess you say.
Yeah, usually if you see a UFC fight get canceled within like 2 days of the fight, and they say that the fighter was taken to the hospital, it's usually this.
Yes.
It happened to Frankie Edgar not long ago, where his kidneys literally shut down, and he had to like have some serious work done.
Yeah, and that's the thing that happened to me. Like, I started pissing blood even after the fight, started throwing up, and they're like, "Hey, I think you had a concussion." I was like, "No, he barely hit me. I don't think I had a concussion." And so the next
you were
day,
rehydrating and refueling, but by that point, it was already the tissue had already entered your kidneys.
Yeah, my kidneys were stocked up, and like, the doctor even told me, "Dude, if you would have kept it like maybe another 15, 20 minutes, if you were in that high level of intensity, you probably would have died." Because my body was using everything it possibly could to, especially in that fight, like, I felt my body go out in the second round. The second round came, and like, if you watch the fight, like, I get really tall. Like, I don't squat low and, manage my distance well. I was staying high because my back had froze up. Like, even Billy, like, I looked in my eyes and I was just like my back, and I was like, he slapped me and like, "Let's go. This is what we do." And, I went out there and just did what it did to get the fight done and win. That was a moment in my life I had to say it. I could feel my wife in the back, like, "This is for her, this is for her. We're not going to give up now. Who's going to carry the boats," right? Mm-hmm. "You don't know me, son." That David Goggins thing is like, that was in my head. And I said, "You know what? I'm going to finish this fight, and I'm going to win this. Like, I'm going to do my thing here, and I'm going to go out flying colors." But that kind of damage took me about six weeks minimum. I'm talking about, I had to take off from work. I was bedridden for about a good 2 weeks. I could barely move. It was like weird. I was like, how? Like, dude, I was just, so after that, like, the doctor required me to eat at least 2,700 to about 3,500 calories. I'm a big dude, so I need to eat minimum that. He suggested eating more. So my coaches and all my team, they got me eating, healthy, good, clean, back again. So I bloomed up to about 285 pounds, and I didn't look bad. I just was full and like strong.
Yeah.
We started a weight cut again properly, a slow weight cut, which took me from, everybody was like, "Damn, where you been at?" I was supposed to fight in July, but the guy pulled out, and then fighting Davario. And everybody looks to have the abs, but I'm a heavyweight, hopefully I'll have a flat stomach
one day.
That'll come for sure. I'm pretty sure in January probably to be there, especially getting with a high nutrition team and some good strength and conditioning coaches. But it's more about the performance. Like my coach says, if you're If you're the best performer with a jug, then you know what? You're going to have a jug because that's the best. It's about the performance. I can have all the abs in the world and get my behind beaten, then what? You know, you look at guys like Roy Nelson. Even look at Max Holloway. He's Hawaiian just like me. You know what I'm saying? And he doesn't have really abs like that. I mean, BJ Penn never really had abs. It's just not in my... And I was looking for that, you know? Especially dropping weight so fast, I'm going to have leftover skin. There's so many things of it, but my main importance now is to be strong, fast, and have a good performance, you know. But, yeah, man, the fight game is crazy. You never know when you know, guys die all the time, you know, and that's kind of hard to say, but...
It seems like more this year than ever, too, doesn't it? Like, it just seems like, especially with boxing, it has been a hard
Somebody
year.
just passed away the other day.
Yeah, James, Australian fighter, I think, is who you're talking about. Yeah, it just seems like that it's never been as high a number as it is as of this year, in my opinion. And I think it's got a lot to do with weight cutting. Like
weight cutting, and I think, like, I could make 205. One of my coaches like, I think you could go to 85. I'm like, no, I haven't been. Last time I was 205 was, I think, like 8th grade. Like, no, I could, you know, if I stop eating, you know, Hawaiian food, but, you know, and stop eating all the great food that I eat at all these great places. But, you know, performance-wise, like, okay, I'll get 205 and look like a like I've been 230 pounds, 225 pounds when I was in the military. I looked like a noodle. I was at the weight, but I just looked like I felt weak. And this is after college football, you know, playing defensive end at 275 pounds, running a 4.8 40, 4.7, like being able to, you know, be strong and, you know, it's a different vibe. And then going from in 8 weeks to 230 pounds, where it's like I can run all day. I tore my arch. Like, your body will adjust. That's something that I do understand. But to perform at what you need it to, it takes science, it takes understanding, it takes how you feel. And so, like, me and my coaches have always talked about, 205, we want to go get John, you know. Let's go get John. I'm not, like, I'd fight John. I'd fight John right now. You know, I'd fight anybody. Like, I will fight. I'm not, that's why I have coaches. My coaches, they know I'll fight anybody, anytime, anywhere. I'm a fighter. It's just fun. I'll fight a guy in the back of the parking lot, you know, for free. No cameras around. I just like fighting. You know, but that's why I have coaches, because they want to make sure we take the right fights and not I'm out there just doing stupid stuff, taking 2 fights too early, you know. Yeah. Trust me, I've had 3 or 4 title fight offers before this, you know. And it's not that we weren't ready. It was just they want me to be better, well-rounded. Once you start taking title fights, there's no more.
Right, like this guy that you're about to fight's been in the game for 11 fights and hasn't taken one for a reason. Yeah.
You know, and I think he'll be I'm excited for him. Like I'm happy. Like, I don't even care if win or lose. I'm like on my Donald Cowboy Cerrone right now. Like, I want to go out there and just put on a show for the fans. Like, I guess at this point, it matters if I win. I definitely want the win. I'm looking to get the win. I believe I'll get the win. You know, I mean, the win is there. It's mine. But I want to put on a show. I want to go out there and, like, give these fans right now when I have I guess I can say the expenses where it's like, you know, it's still Emmy. Like, I can go out there and be undefeated as an Emmy and lose as a pro first fight. Right? It can happen. I've seen it happen.
Oh, we've seen a couple guys around here go 6-0 and Emmy and then
boom. You know, so right now I'm just going out there to get the experience. Like, I'm not really out there trying to win. I am out there trying to win these fights, but I'm out here trying to try things in these fights too. Like, you know.
Not looking to point fight.
No. I'm looking out here to feel and try different sizes out. Like, all my guys are different sizes.
Very, very different.
Gabe's one size. You got Markel's definitely a different size. He gives me that Roy Nelson, Mark Hunt. Like, by the looks of him, you're like, oh, no, he's just a big dude. And then, boom, he hits you with that. You're like, oh. I know a couple guys that no.
Yeah.
You know, like, that guy can fight. And then you got a guy like DeVario, who's, you know, former All-American, college wrestler type of deal. 6'5", big dude. He was big. You know, made me look like a regular human being.
Yeah, he did.
And that's not normal. So him and this guy, I think he's about 6'5" too, big dude. They're all different shapes and sizes, but I like to test it out because when I get to the pro, there is no testing it out. These are my tests. These are I get to play. You know, so I want to go out there and just put on a show with this guy. And, you know, if it's a Mexican war or Hawaiian war, as we call it, you know, like, you guys will see me. If it goes to the third round and there's 10 seconds, I don't care what I'm doing. I'm going to go to the middle. I'm going to point down. Let's go. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to, like, in the last fight, DeVario is like, bro, I don't want to sit here and grab each other. Let's bang, bro. Like, let me bang, yeah?
Yeah,
like, you know, so like this fight, have my Donald Cowboy Cerrone or my Diego Sanchez, just go out there and fight, man. This is what it's all we do, and this is a Christmas present for everybody. Like, this is the only times I don't get to do this like that, right? Because as soon as I turn pro, which is very soon, I'm looking to, I'm not going to spoil anything, but after this fight, there may be 3 letters that we may be approaching pretty soon that may be a big deal for everybody, especially here they're coming to Raleigh. So there's some big things going on with them, and as long as I go out there and do what I'm supposed to, you guys could see me representing and see in a big stadium, maybe an arena downtown.
That would be sick, man.
Something.
That would be sick.
Possibilities, right? Either way,
It's gonna be something worth thinking about in the 3rd round when things get tough.
Yeah, this is a 5-round fight too, man. That's what I'm excited about. Like, I get to play. Oh my gosh!
Right. But still, it's 5 minutes or 3 minutes?
It's 3 fives. So 15, it's like a regular UFC fight.
Yeah.
And so like I'm not even gonna lie. Like, after this fight, like, I may take one more, but my goal is to get to the UFC, and if I can get on that UFC Raleigh Fight Night card, who knows? Somebody might make a debut on there, and especially with all the people that support me in Raleigh. Like, a lot of people.
That would be a big deal because there's not a lot of people that make their pro debut in the UFC.
There's only a few.
The last person was CM Punk.
Yeah, there's a few, and then my boy Tafa, he fought 2 pro fights and got a contract on the main card against a guy who came from the Contender Series. I mean, that was huge. I was like, so I'm a hometown guy. Raleigh's got a lot of support for me. Probably am one of the biggest guys, if not the biggest guy coming out of Raleigh right now. I would say Jamie Pickett had that, but I think he's passed that on to me, and anytime anybody...
He's knocking on the door anyway.
Yeah, he's me and him both, and he's like a big brother to me. He's told me, like, a lot of people will tell me, like, I'm the next big thing, and I don't really let that get to me, but in terms of fan basis and trying to get tickets, like, I believe I am. I'm the Conor McGregor of Raleigh, but I'm a good Conor McGregor. I'm like Conor before Dalton,
There's nothing bad about his opponents.
No, I'm actually trying to, like, I'll be like the Rock of the UFC. I mean, I want to be one of the most electrifying, charismatic, good-looking human beings on there, All I need is a haircut one day.
One day I'll get one.
Sure, it's on the way, but shout out to my barbers, in their barbershop. They get me right every fight. But, just to be that charismatic guy that, will take you down Jabroni Aisle and, make a left on.
Candy ass.
You know what I'm saying? And just be a guy for the fans. And one thing people have to understand about me, like, I love fighting, but, like, I'm all fun and games. Like, I really do this for the kids as well. Like, all the kids that are fighting in those cancer hospitals, those are the guys that I do this for. There's actually a kid now I'm going to be making a big shout out to pretty soon. He's fighting cancer right now. And it's like those kids, like, even my first fight, that young lady that I was fighting for, when I made that little point down there, like, I didn't realize it when I was making my pants, but the young lady that I was fighting for, she's in remission now, and she's alive, and she's doing well. And those are the things at 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 a.m. when I'm waking up. I'm like, dude, it hurts, I'm tired, but they're tired too, just like my wife was.
Yeah, man.
In that hospital, and they're getting that chemo, and they're fighting. They just want ice cream, and they want to play PS4 and get on some Fortnite. Like, you really don't understand. I think people don't understand how fortunate life is, man. Like, I don't really have a fear for death. I think that's what makes me do what I do, is, like, I mean, I think a little piece of me died with my wife, and I'm just here now to do, I guess you could say the Lord's work, and be a vessel for people to be able to, see things through kids and people that battle with cancer and people that had to deal with drugs and gang violence. I'm saying? I'm from Compton. Like,
yeah.
I am from Hawaii, born and raised, but I also was in Compton for a long time in the hood, and I'd typical kid where I get in trouble, you got to go live here. You get in trouble, you got to go back there. You got to go in trouble. Like, I've been getting in trouble my whole life, and my coach would tell me when I came in that gym, I was like, whoo! And my wife is the only thing that, really helped me, and my mother that passed away from cancer in 2015 as well, they were both the most important women in my life that changed me. And I'm just here, man, to be a ship, get us across and, be a voice for those who can't, you know what I'm saying? And if fighting will get me there, which I believe it will, I love to do it. That's what I fight for, The UFC not only just needs guys like that, but we've had the Connors, we've had the trash talkers, we've had those people that are like that. But, I think I like more of the Rose feel to it, like, where I don't have to be fake, I could talk trash, and I probably will, but I'll be like The Rock, where it's smooth, and, I want to be the people's champ. that title, matters more than me. I mean, in this day and age, you got the BMF belt, you got all these belts.
The interim belt.
Yeah, it's like
UFC belt.
I want that People's Champ belt. You know? So
that truly intangible belt.
Yeah. So for me, it's just a matter of getting to that next level in the game and getting to the UFC and being able to represent for all of us here in NC and all those that are part of the TST Nation.
Well, I firmly believe you can get there with the tools that you have. You were using consistently the same music for all your fights, and I noticed you switched it up for the last fight.
Yeah.
Are you planning on switching it up again? You gonna stick with what you used last time, and kind of what was the process? Because there's not a lot of guys that always come out of the same thing. So when they change it up, I'm always like, something changed.
Oh yeah, that's the way to get people involved. Get the fans. This is a fun thing, dude. I get to go out there and fight. I'm an entertainer. I want people to forget that. I'm yes, we fight, but we're here to entertain. If I was just gonna fight to fight, I'll just go fight for free somewhere, and I wouldn't care about getting the UFC belt. No, I'm here to entertain people. This is my job. This is fun. So. Growing up, I used to watch guys like GSP, and you watch guys like Vanderlei, and you watch guys, of course, for me, the biggest was BJ Penn, and you hear that whole 78 come on, and you're like, oh, man, BJ, it's time.
Signature
sounds, I'm a huge WWE fan. Hopefully I can get on that one day, too.
Yeah, man.
You hear The Rock, and you hear that crash, you're Stone Cold.
Yeah, the glass breaking.
And it's when you get the goosebumps, it's like, yes, let's go. I want that same feeling for kids and fans with me. Is when you hear my music, you're like, oh, it's me, when you hear that John Cena, for me, that was one of my favorites. And it sucks because my last fight that I was supposed to fight for it, I had let Leslie know. I was like, hey, can I come out to John Cena if that's okay? So I was, she was like, hell yeah, that'd be cool. The kids, that'd be great. And I was like, hell yeah. And then boom, the guy doesn't take the fight and it sucks. I was like, dude, I'm about to hit you with the you can't cheat me. And those are things I like stuff like that, especially when I can do it now. And Dana White, I'm a business. I'm not just a businessman. I'm the businessman.
Yeah.
I'm a businessman, but I am the business. So I have to act as such. And
that's what being an independent contractor is all about.
Come on now, baby. Come on now. Look, that's why, I tell people, a lot of these young guys ask me, hey, man, how do you do the sponsors? How are you so calm? And it's like you've done this a million times. Because, one, I think I come from the LA game and the California game in Hawaii where MMA is huge.
Yeah.
It's like 7-Eleven or a grocery store. There's one on every corner. There's MMA gyms everywhere. And luckily I was able to see the game there and come in here and bring that here. And so, for me, it's I know how to get sponsors. I know how to do the sponsorship thing and what's important, especially in this day and world where it's social media. I understand those things, and I understand the game, and how do I benefit from, putting myself out there. I'm fighting, right? I got to fight regardless. Yeah. So let me take advantage of every aspect of it. The walkouts, the music, the people, the shirts. Everybody sees those TSC shirts, and now it's I see a lot of them so much. It's I'm a brand. I'm a businessman. If I'm trying to get to the UFC, I have to be as marketable as possible with Dana. Nick Maynard, all those guys, Sean Shelby. I have to be able to sell myself. If not, what are you doing this for, kid? You're going to go out there and you're really out there, especially if you fight my boy Roland.
I was just about to ask you about that. There's a fight coming up, on this card between two men that you know super well, Markel and Roland. Mm-hmm. What do you think? How do you think that fight's going to go down?
Why you got to do that to me? Why you got?
Because I'm asking everybody about it. It's such a weird fight.
To me, I don't think it's that weird. I do think it was far-fetched. What?
It's not weird in the sense that Markel is undeserving of a title shot, and it's not weird in the sense that I don't think he can put on a good fight versus Roland.
It just came out of nowhere. It was so far-fetched. I was like, what?
Yeah, man. It's just such a those guys are really in the same weight class in kickboxing.
That means me and Roland can fight. I'm like, what? No.
Yeah.
But I will say this. Fighters fight. And I'm going to put this out there for everybody. All you guys that want to be fighters and want all this and talk all this on Facebook,
oh yeah,
we
that's
fight.
Good. Oh yeah,
right.
I can't wait to hear Roland's because I'm interviewing Roland for the show as well.
Awesome.
And I can't wait to hear.
I
know he's going off.
Bruh, me and him have this conversation. Even my boy Markel, they're all the guys I fight, we're friends after. There's no I don't hold anything against you. Before you said that you were gonna take my dream away, I'll show you. After that, we're cool. I still love all you guys. But if you're a fighter, you think you're a fighter. There's differences. Fighters fight. I don't care how tall, how big, how small, how round. We're going to fight. But if you're not a fighter and you sit out here on Facebook and you're keyboard warriors out there who talk a bunch of nonsense, talking about, I would beat him, I dare you to get in the cage with one of us. Please. Get in the cage with Markel. Please. That boy can fight.
Yeah.
See what happened to the last guy that was talking trash to him. You know what I'm saying? And that guy got knocked out.
Got his nose broken.
Yeah. You know? And he hit me like... that first round, he's the only person that ever really hit me.
He's got a mean cross.
Yeah, and
It's
it's unusually fast. He has an extremely weird body in terms of his arms are super long, but he's not that tall. It was really weird when he hit me, but I adjusted. But he hit me.
And you think that he's going to have not as much reach because
And
of
his
that,
speed
like
and
you're
power.
saying. Yeah.
You know, for me, he hit me those first 2 times. After that, he didn't really hit me. But it's because of my game, and I'm not taking anything away from him.
Like you said, you woke up too.
Yeah, it was like, okay, showtime.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I got into my mode. You know, and no one's really hit me but him. Even in my kickboxing fight, I mean, I feel like Markel's the hardest hitting guy that's fought me so far that I've felt. You know, which not to
If he
downplay
hits
him.
Roland like that, it's gonna be bad. You know?
But see, Roly Poly is my boy.
Yeah, it's hard to hit him too.
Roly, see what I love about Roland, he came up under a legit technical coach, Trevor Hayes.
One of the most technical.
Come on now. And one of my favorite aspects about Roland's game is that it's technical to the T. When he gets tired, he's the same guy. When he's tired or when he's gonna knock your fucking head off with that head kick.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not.
He's constantly looking for it. That's another thing that worries me about Markel is that he's not super tall, but he does have that weight. So if he's like,
I feel like it's gonna be if me and Caleb don't have the fight of the night, I feel like they will. They'll have the fight of the night for the kickboxing side. I feel like me and Caleb will have the fight of the night for the.
It's 2 title matches.
Yeah,
definitely. It's like they're the main event of the kickboxing card.
And check this out, Markel is deserving. I feel because it's a kickboxing match.
Yeah.
MMA wise, he's not bad. He's just coming off of a loss that he almost won in the first round.
To be honest, he was up 10-8 in that round. You know, that was a
Kevin's my boy, and I was like
dominant round.
Woo! It
says a lot about Kevin to be able to survive.
Oh my God,
kind
Sasquatch
of beating.
Yes,
and still have that technique.
Savage, and that's the thing. It's an MMA fight. That's what I love about it. It's like, yeah, you might be winning, you might be up like that. Second round, boom, you're done, son. But this is the thing, right? I'm a striker. Everybody knows I'm a striker. Everybody knows I want to knock your teeth out, send you to meet your maker, baptize you, whatever you want to call it. I'm cool, whatever. I can strike. He can strike. Roland's a striker. He's knocking guys out. He does have a ground game to work on, and this is Marquette. I've told him, if that kid can get his ground game right and get in the right weight class, like 205, he's going to be a fucking problem. He's only, 22?
Yeah.
Give that guy 3 more years, 25, get in the right weight class, get strong, strength and conditioning, get his ground, get a blue belt. Fucking guy's gonna be serious.
Yeah, he is.
He's only 22, mate. And for me, that's a big deal. Roland too.
Roland's a young kid.
I wrestled with Roland.
Yeah.
Roland's no pancake. And he's coming to the MMA game too. A lot of these guys are coming, but we are fighters. So all you guys that sit there and talk all that nonsense about, I'll do this and that, y'all not gonna do nothing. You're gonna keep talking like you do through the computer. And I've seen guys that, what do they call? You're a fight doctor. You're one of the fight commission doctors, and you're sitting there talking. I'm not gonna say no names, but
I honestly think that the commissions and the refs and the judges, for the most part, just disgust me because they act like they're above all the fighters, but without the fighters, they don't have anything to do. They don't have a job. They don't have involvement with the process.
Hey guys, don't be late or we're gonna charge you a fine, man. Dude, I remember last year at the weigh-ins for my kickboxing fight, we had to wait 3 hours
for the commission to show up
or to start.
Yeah.
I'm like, guys, look, I'm here, I'm hungry, let's go, And there are the commission. I would not say that they're not. It's not all of them. There's a few. You know who they are.
Yes.
Even in my fight, I'm not gonna badmouth him because I don't know him personally, and I don't want to throw him under the bus. I'm really not, but I feel like the ref doesn't like me, because in my last 2 fights, he's gotten these guys hurt. Say what you say.
Are you with Donnie?
Yeah.
When that happens?
Yeah, I did kind of, because Markel went out in the first round when I had him on the ground. He was he went out for that second. So I was like, but that's not my coaches have fixed it. They said, hey, that's not your job. You beat his ass. I'm Hawaiian. I have a little bit of aloha in me, so I have a little bit of a heart. And these young guys too. It is what it is. But that's not my job, and I've kind of fixed that. I need to be more of a killer. He went out, and then, Donnie made sure he let me know that, hey, don't tell me what to do. And I understood it, but it's like, in that first round when I was putting it on Markel, I was like, hey, man. And he did tell Markel, hey, I can't let you take any more damage like that, But Markel came back and showed, and they showed me, like, oh, shit.
I'm still here. Yeah.
And even in the fight with DeVario, like, when you fight these guys, we're all human. We're fighters, but I'm a husband. I'm a father in a sense. I'm a father to a bunch of kids that ain't mine. But I'm a brother. I understand these guys like Markel, DeVario, Gabe, even Caleb. Caleb's a father. I respect that about these men that come in here and get in the cage with me. And after you see some of these guys like DeVario, the health in after, even myself, I'm throwing up after the fight. It's just like, it could be dangerous. This is a dangerous sport. People die in this stuff. So like, if you put your fighters in danger, that's one thing I'm always worried about. Like, yeah, you may have an issue with me, but don't put somebody's health on the line because you have an issue with me. That's my biggest thing. Now, if you feel like they can compete, let them compete. But remember, this is Amis. These guys ain't getting paid for this.
That's all. That's why it's good to have a guy like Billy Dowie in your corner who, if he knows you're in a spot like that, will just throw the towel in.
Yeah, and Billy was like, look, man, I don't care about – your record doesn't matter right now. He texts me all the time. I'm like, hey, I'm ranked. I'm number 12 in the Southeast, and I'm on, he's like, I don't care. Oh, that's going to go away in a couple months, right? Yeah. All right, so let's keep working. He always humbles me, which I'm so grateful. I love him. He's like a dad to me. I call him daddy all the time. You know what I'm saying? The Papa Smurf right there. He's really good for me. He's one of the best things that ever happened to me. Him and my brother John Country Allen. That dude is a savage. Anyone who knows him, he cornered and helped get OSP ready for that John Jones fight. I'd tell you something right there. You know?
Definitely.
So I'm just blessed and grateful for the opportunity to be around a bunch of good men that are men first and fighters. That's one thing I'm super grateful for. But it's the fight game. I gotta go out there and put in some work, baby. So I ain't gonna, I'm still gonna do what I do.
Too strong. I'm looking forward to it, man. I can't wait. I will see you on November 23rd, sir. Thanks for talking to us here on Fight For It Radio.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.